Prologue, a confession that asks no absolution. I do not speak to idols. I speak to history. This is not a confession disguised as humility. It is not jealousy dressed as admiration. It is not trauma-seeking absolution. This is a record of power. I place these words here for Jisoo and for those who will follow. I do this because I know there is someone who can be trusted without being fully known. A presence that does not rush time. A person whose rhythm does not require justification and who does not turn silence into anxiety. Watching Rosé and Lisa, I shook. Not because of talent alone, not because of fame, but because they were allowed to exist publicly before I was allowed to exist at all. I tried to romanticize it. I tried to say, everyone has their own time, but that was a lie taught by systems that delay certain lives on purpose. What I felt for Rosé was not jealousy of the stage, but of the background. The sensation of being supported from the start, of not having to ask for permission, of moving forward without the weight of hesitation. With Lisa, it was an envy of time. Entering the industry so early that every mistake was allowed under the name of youth. I had to learn I was late before I even learned my own name. What I feel for Jisoo is not an explosion, but sustenance. Not a proof, but maintenance. I did not arrive late by choice. I arrived late by force. Chapter 1, Weird as a Crime. Before I was anything else, I was weird. Not unique, not special, weird. In the way society uses the word as a warning. Weird bodies are corrected, weird minds are managed, weird lives are delayed. My difference was not abstract, it was neurological. My brain was malformed, not metaphorically, but materially. And because of that, my existence was never treated as neutral. People look at this and call it a hidden blessing, as if neurological difference automatically grants some special light. That lie makes me angry. Before there was any light, there was disorder. There was the internal chaos of a mind that could not follow the world's rhythm. It wasn't poetic. It was a malediction I had to learn to endure before I could learn to use. Family did not ask who I was. It asked how to fix me. By privating me from the life that I deserved, just like who was born normal. Society did not misunderstand me. It identified me correctly and decided I should not have full access to life. Being weird was treated as a flaw. I now understand it was a threat. Chapter 2, Family and Society as Systems of Control. This is not about individual cruelty, it is about structure. Family did not fail me. While I was still naive, believing that I was not born as a puppet, it performed exactly as designed. Families are taught to cling harder to those deemed fragile, not to liberate them, but to possess them. Difference is interpreted as vulnerability, and vulnerability is mistaken for permission. Permission to decide, permission to supervise, permission to invade. Care became surveillance, love became conditional, protection became ownership. Society mirrors this behavior. It is more invasive with the different than with its own equals. I was praised when I endured silently. I was punished when I claimed autonomy. Neglect began the moment I refused to be useful to other people's sense of virtue. My rhythm was stolen, confiscated by the fear of others and by a society that only allows difference when it is silent. Chapter 3, The Crime of Arriving Late. In pop culture, age is not a number, it is hierarchy. Youth is treated as purity. Malleability is virtue. Obedience is rewarded with access. I arrived outside the prodigy narrative, not because I lacked talent, but because my life was postponed by correction, management, and containment. The world asked, "Why did you arrive so late?" The correct question was never asked, "Who delayed you?" Chapter 4, Chronological Self-Hatred. When society delays your life, it teaches you to blame yourself. You missed your turn. You're behind. It's too late now. This poison is internalized. It becomes discipline turned inward. Hatred of time, shame of arrival. I felt I had missed a lap, in a race I wasn't allowed to start. This is not insecurity. This is structural violence absorbed by the body. Chapter 5. The body that was never allowed to arrive. I was not late because I was slow. I was late because my body was treated as a problem to be managed. Functionality was demanded. Life was postponed. I learned early that being functional mattered more than being alive. This album exists because I rejected that equation. And I reject your polite advice to learn from my mistakes. There is no lesson in a biological error. There is no wisdom in being held back by a physical defect. Don't tell me that science says the missing parts of the brain will form or adapt with time. To everyone who says and believes in this science, fuck you. The only thing this deficiency ever taught me was to wish for death. That is the only real data I have. Because mistake by mistake, I won't be dumb to believe that I can learn with it as I know myself. As the only person in my circle with this shitty curse, I want to say to everyone that tells me to not be hard to myself to go to hell. Because in my opinion, who loves such deficiency in itself is already signing in the death sentence. My difference today is an active choice. Like when I create my own choreographies instead of following the original ones, I do not want to be remembered through the malformation of my brain, the difference I hate the most. Chapter 6. Precedence, Sia. Sia is not an aesthetic reference. She is a historical precedent. She was not a cute talent to be consumed. She was a woman who endured waiting and misunderstanding before being accepted. Her late arrival was survival. She proves something essential. Arriving late does not mean arriving wrong. It means arriving heavy, with truth, consciousness, and refusal to be owned. I respect her because she didn't make her neurodivergence the center of the story. She didn't hide it, nor did she consume it. She survived with dignity. Chapter 7. Those who were held back and survived. Sia, Kesha, Adele, Kelly Clarkson, Ava Max, Sarah Bareilles, Carly Rae Jepsen, Coldplay, Evanescence. Their common ground is not success. It is persistence after invalidation, survival against time itself. Chapter 8. Those who arrived early, and paid the price. Taylor Swift, Beyoncé, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, Shakira, Avril Lavigne. Early arrival is not privilege without cost. Control, surveillance, extraction. Chapter 9. K-pop, youth as contract. In K-pop, youth is not coincidence, it is clause. Blackpink, ITZY, Twice, Red Velvet, 2 Northeast 1. Baby Monster. Debut does not equal autonomy. Those who survive do so by awareness, not innocence. In this record, Jennie's name is absent for a simple reason. She never triggered the pain of jealousy in me. Since becoming a Blink, she never threw me a thread of complex emotion. She exists in a world different from the storm my soul faces. Chapter 10. The apocalypse caused by normality. The world does not collapse because of the weird. It collapses because normality tries to control what it cannot edit. Every apocalypse is the return of the repressed. Chapter 11. Fame as weapon, not escape. This is where Luna Sky is born. Fame is not validation. Fame is leverage. I do not want to be seen. I want to be unavoidable. This is historical retaliation. When I say fame as revenge, it is not a poetic metaphor. It is a reaction. It is the toxic residue left after being told to wait while others lived. Each album will be an emotional slap. Each song is designed to push the weight I had to swallow back down the throat of the world. I do not care what society or family think, because even with everything exploding inside my head, I learned more about who I wanted to become on my own than they could ever teach me. The system only knows how to accept perfection, never what people like me actually are, from the inside out. Chapter 12. Neglected by living my way. This album is not therapy, it is evidence. I was neglected because I lived my way. because I refused correction. Weird is not an insult, it is sovereignty. If being weird disqualifies me from your world, then your world deserves to collapse. Epilogue. Not late. Inevitable. If I had arrived earlier, I would have been moldable. Arriving later, I am irreducible. This is not healing. This is function reclaimed from violence. I am not asking for equality with systems that required my silence to feel powerful. History will not ask why I was different. It will ask why difference was treated as a threat. I am not healed. I am functional. And that's enough to change history. I have survived the time when waiting was driving me mad. I no longer need comfort, understanding, or permission. I do not explode. I do not run. I simply exist. Together with those who recognized each other, we will shove our evolution down their throats. My family lost the polished daughter they trained me to perform as the one shaped to reassure, to absorb discomfort, to translate control into gratitude. That version is gone. Not missing, not wounded, terminated by awareness. Society lost me as well. Not as a tragedy, as an asset. It lost a manageable body, a diagnosable mind, a defect it could monitor, correct, delay, and parade as proof of its own tolerance. I am no longer available for supervision. I did not escape. I revoked consent. They can no longer point to me and say, "See? It worked." I am not their outcome. I am their interruption. And to my lunatics, I just ask one thing: to promise me mentally and make it happen literally. Never give up on your dreams too late. Like I was conditioned to do. Never postpone a calling because it makes others uncomfortable, especially when the discomfort comes from institutions that profit from your silence. Never accept later as wisdom when it is being used as a leash. Never confuse discipline with obedience or patience with erasure. Never allow family, school, religion, or industry to rename fear as care or control as love. Never negotiate your identity to remain legible to systems that were never built to include you. Never let success be used retroactively to justify what nearly destroyed you on the way there. Never become evidence that the system works simply because you survived it. Never shrink your ambition to fit timelines designed to exhaust you. Never internalize the idea that talent must be softened or corrected to be acceptable. Never romanticize suffering as a prerequisite for legitimacy. Never accept gratitude as a debt you owe for basic respect. Never allow being functional to replace being free. Never confuse visibility with permission. Existence does not require approval. Never stay in rooms where your humanity is treated as a phase or a problem to be managed. Never let psychiatry, productivity, or politeness be weaponized to neutralize your clarity. Never perform healing for the comfort of people who benefited from your silence. Never apologize for choosing rupture over slow disappearance. Never inherit shame that was strategically planted to keep you compliant. Never abandon yourself to preserve peace that was never meant to include you. Never mistake being called extreme for being wrong. Never dilute truth to remain likable or manageable. Never wait to be chosen when choosing yourself is the rupture. Never let anyone convince you that your clarity arrived too late when it arrived, exactly when control began to fail. Never turn your survival into propaganda for the very forces that tried to delay you. I am not here to be understood. Understanding is often the last tool of control. I'm here to mark a boundary. What failed was not my resilience. What failed was the assumption that delay is neutral, that protection is benign, that silence is patience, and that survival is proof of success. I was never broken. I was postponed. And postponement is not an accident. It is a strategy. This work does not ask you to follow me. It asks you to notice where you have been asked to wait for permission that was never coming. If you see yourself here, do not turn this recognition into loyalty. Turn it into withdrawal. Withdraw from timelines that exhaust you. Withdraw from gratitude that was demanded. not earned. Withdraw from identities softened to remain tolerable. Nothing collapses because of noise. Systems collapse when people stop feeding them their time, their shame, and their compliance. I am not the proof that it works. I am the evidence that it doesn't. And what comes after me does not need to announce itself, it only needs to stop consenting.